Nestled deep in the mountains, St. Augustine Monastery stood as a place of prayer, discipline, and unwavering faith. The nuns who resided there had taken vows of purity, dedicating their lives to serving God. Cut off from the outside world, their only interactions with society came through their charitable work. For years, the monastery remained untouched by scandal, until one fateful morning. As the chapel bell rang, signaling the start of the morning prayers, the nuns silently took their places in the wooden pews, dressed in simple black habits. Their heads bowed, hands clasped in devotion. At the front of the chapel, Mother Superior Catherine led the service, her voice steady and filled with reverence. But just as the prayers began, a sharp gasp broke the silence. All eyes turned as Sister Margaret, only 22 years old, swayed on her feet and collapsed to the ground. Gasps echoed through the chapel. Sister Eleanor rushed forward, catching Margaret just in time. The young nun's face was pale, her breathing shallow. One hand clutched her stomach, as if in pain. "Help her," someone whispered. Mother Catherine quickly stepped forward, her composed expression shifting to concern. "Take her to the infirmary," she ordered. Sister Anne and Sister Beatrice lifted Margaret, guiding her out of the chapel. The rest of the nuns exchanged uneasy glances. Whispers filled the air. Something was terribly wrong. And deep down, Mother Catherine felt a chill run through her bones, a feeling that this was only the beginning of a much darker mystery. Inside the monastery infirmary, Dr. William Carter examined Sister Margaret, his experienced hands moving carefully as he checked her pulse and temperature. The young nun lay on the cot, her face pale, her breathing unsteady. She winced in discomfort as he pressed gently against her abdomen. After a long silence, Dr. Carter finally looked up, his face unusually tense. Mother Superior Catherine, standing beside him, frowned. "What is it, doctor?" He hesitated, as if struggling to find the right words. Then, in a low, serious voice, he said, "Sister Margaret is showing signs of pregnancy." The room seemed to freeze. Mother Catherine's expression darkened. "That is impossible," she said firmly. "No man has set foot in this monastery." Dr. Carter wiped a hand across his forehead. "I understand, but the symptoms are undeniable. Her belly is slightly swollen, and she is experiencing dizziness and nausea. These are classic early pregnancy signs." A heavy silence fell over the room. Mother Catherine's grip tightened on the edge of her robe. "This cannot be," she murmured. Then, steeling herself, she made a decision. "We must examine the others," she said, her voice unwavering. "I need to know the truth." Within hours, all the nuns underwent medical examinations. And then, the horrifying truth was revealed. Not just Margaret, but 11 other nuns showed the same symptoms. A wave of shock spread through the monastery. The nuns whispered among themselves, their voices filled with fear and confusion. Mother Catherine felt a terrible dread settle over her. Something unnatural was happening. And soon, the entire world would hear about it. The shocking news spread beyond the monastery walls, reaching the nearby villages and beyond. Rumors ran wild. Some whispered that St. Augustine Monastery was cursed, while others claimed that the nuns had broken their sacred vows in secret. When the news reached Bishop Nathaniel, the powerful and unyielding head of the regional church, his reaction was immediate. "This is unacceptable," he thundered during an emergency meeting at the cathedral. "A scandal like this will bring disgrace upon the church." Around the long wooden table, the gathered priests exchanged uneasy glances. "But Your Excellency," began Father Lucas, the youngest and most compassionate among them. "We don't yet know the full truth. Perhaps there is something unusual at play." Bishop Nathaniel's eyes narrowed. "There is nothing unusual, only that these nuns have sinned." His voice was cold, resolute. "We must act swiftly to restore order." "But if they are innocent," Father Lucas started. "There is no if," Nathaniel interrupted sharply. We leave for the monastery immediately. If any are guilty, they will face punishment. Within hours, a procession of carriages rumbled up the mountain path toward St. Augustine Monastery. As Bishop Nathaniel and his senior clergy stepped out onto the monastery grounds, the air grew heavy with tension. The nuns stood in the courtyard, heads bowed in silent fear. Mother Superior Catherine met the bishop's gaze with a calm but determined expression. "Welcome, Your Excellency," she said, her voice measured. "I trust you have come to uncover the truth." Bishop Nathaniel surveyed the trembling nuns, his lips curling in disdain. "The truth is already clear, Mother Catherine," he said. "Now, only judgment remains." The weight of Bishop Nathaniel's judgment settled over St. Augustine Monastery like a storm. The nuns stood frozen in the courtyard, their faces pale with fear. They had dedicated their lives to faith, yet now they were being treated as sinners. Inside the monastery's grand hall, Nathaniel addressed the nuns with a chilling finality. "The Church does not tolerate scandal," he declared. "Until we determine the full extent of your sins, all suspected nuns will be isolated. None may leave. None may speak." Gasps spread through the group. Sister Eleanor's hands trembled as she clutched her rosary. Sister Beatrice bit her lip, tears threatening to spill. "Your Excellency," Mother Superior Catherine interjected, struggling to keep her voice steady. "I assure you, there is a mistake. My nuns are innocent." Nathaniel's piercing gaze locked onto her. "Then explain why 12 of them show signs of pregnancy." Mother Catherine had no answer. Outside the monastery walls, rumors had already ignited a firestorm. The villagers who once revered St. Augustine Monastery as a beacon of holiness now gathered at its gates, their whispers turning to outrage. "They are frauds," a man spat. "They claim to be holy, but they have defiled this sacred place. They should be cast out," another voice shouted. A stone was hurled against the monastery gate. Then another. The dull thud echoed ominously through the halls. From her window, Mother Catherine watched as the once faithful turned against them. She clenched her hands. This was no longer just an accusation, it was an attack. And she feared it was only the beginning. The monastery, once a place of peace and prayer, had turned into a prison. The 12 accused nuns were forbidden from leaving their quarters, watched over by the bishop's men like criminals awaiting trial. Then came the interrogations. One by one, the nuns were led into a cold stone hall, where Bishop Nathaniel and a panel of stern-faced priests awaited them. A single wooden chair sat in the center, where each nun was forced to sit under their judgmental gaze. Sister Helena, the youngest among them, barely 20 years old, trembled as she faced the council. "Tell the truth, child," an elder priest urged. "Admit your sin, and God may grant you mercy." Tears welled in Helena's eyes. "I have committed no sin, Father," she whispered. Nathaniel scoffed. "Then explain why you, and 11 others, carry the signs of pregnancy." I don't know," she stammered. Silence filled the room. "Take her away," Nathaniel ordered. The same questions were repeated for each nun, yet none could provide the answer the bishop sought. Because they were innocent. After hours of questioning, Bishop Nathaniel had made his decision. "These nuns have brought disgrace to the Church," he announced, standing before the gathered monastery. "I hereby order their immediate expulsion from St. Augustine Monastery. They are to be cast out and shall never return." Cries of disbelief filled the air. "No." Sister Beatrice fell to her knees. "Please, Your Excellency, we are telling the truth." But Nathaniel ignored her. At dawn, the monastery gates swung open. As the 12 nuns stepped outside, a furious mob awaited them. And the first stone was thrown. The 12 nuns walked into a nightmare. As they stepped beyond the monastery gates, a mob of villagers awaited them, their faces twisted with rage and betrayal. "Liars," a man shouted. A rock flew through the air, striking Sister Eleanor on the shoulder. She stumbled, but Mother Catherine caught her before she fell. Another voice rang out, an elderly woman who had once prayed alongside them. "We trusted you. You have shamed us all." A bucket of filthy water was thrown, splashing against Sister Margaret's habit. Through it all, Mother Catherine stood tall, shielding her sisters as best she could. "Leave us be. We have done nothing wrong." But no one listened. With nowhere to turn, the nuns walked for hours until they reached the edge of a dense forest. Exhausted, they collapsed under the trees, shivering in the cold night air. Sister Beatrice clutched her arms, her voice trembling. "What do we do now? We have no home. No protection." Mother Catherine looked up at the dark sky, her heart heavy. She knew only one person who could help them. "We must send word to Father Lucas." Sister Anne gasped. "But how? The bishop has guards watching everyone." Mother Catherine reached into the folds of her robe, pulling out a small, sealed letter. She pressed it into Sister Anne's hands. "You are the only one they may not recognize yet," she whispered. "Find Father Lucas. Tell him everything." Anne swallowed hard. If she was caught, the consequences would be dire. But she nodded. She had to do this. Under the cover of darkness, Sister Anne slipped away, carrying their last hope. Sister Anne ran through the dense forest, her breath shallow, her heart pounding. Every shadow felt like a threat, every rustling leaf a sign of pursuit. If the bishop's men caught her, they would silence her before she could reach Father Lucas. Hours later, she arrived at a small chapel in a neighboring village. She hesitated only for a moment before pushing open the heavy wooden doors. Inside, Father Lucas knelt in prayer. At the sound of the door creaking, he turned. "Sister Anne." His brow furrowed in concern as he took in her disheveled state. "We need your help, Father." She thrust the sealed letter into his hands, her fingers trembling. Lucas quickly unfolded the parchment, his eyes scanning Mother Catherine's desperate words. With each line, his expression darkened. "My God," he whispered. "The bishop has framed them." And nodded, barely holding back tears. "We have no proof, but we know we are innocent." Father Lucas stood abruptly, his jaw set in determination. "Then we will find proof." That night, he sought out Dr. Michael Hayes, an independent physician. The doctor carefully re-examined Sister Margaret's medical records and symptoms. The next morning, the results were in. Father Lucas clutched the paper tightly. They were never pregnant. His voice shook with barely contained fury. Dr. Hayes nodded gravely. Their symptoms were caused by artificial hormones. Someone poisoned them. Lucas's breath hitched. Bishop Nathaniel. The realization settled over them like a storm. Lucas straightened. "We must go back to the monastery." Anne's eyes widened. But the bishop. He must answer for his crimes. At dawn, Father Lucas and Sister Anne began the dangerous journey back to confront Bishop Nathaniel. The truth was coming. And this time, the bishop would not escape. At sunrise, Father Lucas and Sister Anne approached St. Augustine Monastery. The towering gates remained shut, guarded by Bishop Nathaniel's men. Lucas took a deep breath, gripping the sealed medical report from Dr. Hayes. This was their proof. With a firm knock, he demanded entry. "I must speak with Bishop Nathaniel immediately." The guards hesitated but eventually let him through. Inside, the air was thick with tension. The nuns were still prisoners in their own home, and Mother Catherine stood alone before the bishop. Nathaniel smirked as Lucas entered. "Come to defend the sinners, have you?" Lucas's voice rang clear. "No. I've come to expose a liar." A murmur spread through the gathered clergy. Lucas raised the doctor's report high. The nuns were never pregnant, he declared. They were poisoned, deliberately. Gasps filled the hall. The priests exchanged uneasy glances. Dr. Hayes stepped forward. I tested their blood myself. Someone introduced artificial hormones into their food. Nathaniel's face turned pale. This is nonsense, he growled. Then Father Thomas, a young priest, stepped forward, holding an old leather-bound ledger. This book contains orders, signed by Bishop Nathaniel, to tamper with the monastery's food supply, Thomas announced. Nathaniel's composure cracked. His eyes darted to the doors. He was trapped. You liar, he snarled, lunging for the book. But Lucas and the other priests blocked him. You have betrayed the church, Lucas said coldly. And you will answer for it. 2 days later, Bishop Nathaniel was excommunicated. His titles were stripped, and he was cast out, never to return. As the monastery gates swung open, the exiled nuns were welcomed back with honor. The truth had prevailed. And St. Augustine Monastery stood strong once more. The story of St. Augustine Monastery is more than just a tale of injustice, it is a powerful reminder that truth, resilience, and courage can withstand even the darkest oppression. As we step into 2025, this story serves as a reflection of the challenges we still face in the modern world. Corruption, abuse of power, and the manipulation of truth are not relics of the past, they continue to exist in different forms. Whether in institutions, workplaces, or personal lives, people still struggle against false accusations, oppression, and betrayal. One of the greatest lessons from this story is that silence in the face of injustice allows evil to thrive. The nuns could have accepted their fate, surrendered to the accusations, and let the world believe a lie. Instead, they fought for their dignity, not through violence or revenge, but through unwavering faith in the truth. Their perseverance ultimately led to justice, proving that lies may spread quickly, but the truth always finds a way to prevail. Another important lesson is the power of standing together. Mother Catherine and her nuns did not abandon each other, even in their darkest hour. Father Lucas, despite the risks, refused to turn a blind eye to injustice. This unity in the face of adversity was the key to their victory. As we navigate an era of misinformation, power struggles, and societal challenges, this story reminds us to question what we are told, to seek the truth, and to support those who are wrongfully persecuted. It encourages us to be fearless in defending justice and compassionate in our judgments. In 2025 and beyond, may we all strive to be like those who fought for truth, not for personal gain, but because it was the right thing to do. The battle may be over, but Mother Catherine's journey is far from finished. She and her fellow nuns have reclaimed their honor, but now they must rebuild St. Augustine Monastery and ensure that such corruption never happens again. What challenges do you think she will face next? Should she work to reform the Church's leadership, or focus on helping others who have suffered from false accusations? Should she use the monastery as a sanctuary for the oppressed, or fight to expose deeper corruption within religious institutions? We want to hear from you. What should Mother Catherine's next step be? How can she continue to fight for justice? What lessons from her story apply to today's world? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts. Your voice matters in shaping the discussion on truth, justice, and resilience. If you believe in the strength of this story, like and share to spread its message. Subscribe to stay updated on more powerful stories of courage and redemption. Together, we can stand for justice, just like Mother Catherine did.